Good morning and welcome to the Monte Vista Unitarian Universalist congregation here in beautiful downtown Montclair, California, the church at the mall, if we want to be called a church, the congregation at the mall. We just have such many multisyllabic words that we want for our titles. It's another beautiful Sunday. Let's hope we don't have quite the turbulence that we had last week. If you read this week's announcements, you'll see that we had a few problems. We had a leak with the roof and water flow to the Montessori school and homeless person seeking dryness, all things for us to consider in the future. This week, today, after service in the Founders Room, will be adult RE discussion of the revisions or whatever to the principles and sources, the first of 6 classes. So that's in the Founders Room after service today. Taco Tuesdays on Tuesday. Last week was nice. I think there were a bunch of us hiding from election results out of... Yes. So we had a good turnout and talked about things other than election results. And it was fun. I encourage you to come and take a listen. Next week is new member service. Part of the service will be new people signing the book. I look forward to that. It's an exciting uptick for us. RE is discussing for children. Their topics this month is the 3rd principle. So that's what they do. Thanksgiving, yes. If you wish to attend Thanksgiving dinner here on Thursday, please RSVP to Reverend Maggie or to the office or somebody by next Saturday. You know, they want to get a count so they can decide on how many turkeys and how much of the goodies are needed. So with that, Reverend Maggie.
Good morning. Boy, when I sat down, half the room was empty, and it's like, wow, hello. I love how that happens. Well, here we are at the 2nd Sunday of the month. Do we know what that means? Birthday Sunday. So do we have anyone here that has a birthday in November? Bill, great. And I know today, this very day, is Bob Taylor's birthday. So we will, yeah, but he'll still hear us. I just know it. So either that or we'll send him the copy of the YouTube recording so he can hear us. But when we get to the name, we'll just sing November Babies, if that's okay. So I invite you to join us as we sing Happy Birthday to our November babies. Happy birthday, Bill. And you too, Bob. We open our service with the ringing of the bell, one for the past, the present, and the future. We ring it once for those who came before, for those who have accepted us and supported our spiritual growth, encouraging us to become who we are today. We ring it once for those who are here and now. For those alongside us today as we walk our inspired paths together. And we ring it once for those who will come. For those that we inspire and to explore their best lives in community with us here as faithful Unitarian Universalists. Sorry, I have my mask on. I'd like to invite Mark Boninger up to light our chalice for us, please. You should find the matches there, Mark, behind. The children's one is just a switch, so just the big one and the little one, yeah. With full hearts, we affirm our relationships of support with one another. We recognize both our individuality and our connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous. We light this chalice, symbol of all that we are, all that we have done together, and all that will be, as we share our ministry and encourage those within and beyond these walls. I invite you to stand now as we sing our opening song, number 123, Spirit of Life. For our wisdom tale, I'd like to invite Robert up for this week's story. It's written by Christopher Buice, and the title is God's Hat.
Good morning, everybody. Once upon a time, there was a village with a road that went straight through the center of town. One day, something strange happened. God walked down the road, and she was beautiful. She wore a long, flowing robe, and on top of her head, there was a wonderful hat. All the people stopped and stared at God as she walked by, and they kept staring until she disappeared in the distance. "Boy, God sure was beautiful," said one man. "And what a beautiful blue hat she had on." Yes, God was beautiful, said a woman from the other side of the street. But it wasn't a blue hat she was wearing, it was red. You are wrong, said the man. It was definitely a blue hat. No, you are wrong, said the woman. It was definitely a red hat. As the two argued, others joined in the dispute. Soon the whole village was arguing. All the people on one side of the road were certain that God was wearing a blue hat, and all the people on the other side of the road were certain that God was wearing a red hat. People got mad and started screaming at each other, and finally the people got so angry that they decided to build a wall that went straight down the center of town. From that point on, the people on one side of the wall were enemies with the people who lived on the other side of the wall, and they never spoke to each other. On one side of the wall, the people built a church where they worshipped a god that wore a blue hat. On the other side of the wall, they built a church where the people worshipped a red hat. Many years passed, and the people were still enemies. Then one day, God came walking back through the village. She was smiling and bouncing on top of the wall that the people had built many years ago. This time, she was wearing no hat at all. All the people ran to the wall and cried, "You must settle our argument." "Yes," said one man, "the people on that side of the street say that when you walked through the village many years ago, you were wearing a blue hat. But we know better. We know that you were wearing a red hat. So tell us, God, which color hat was it?" God looked puzzled for a moment and began to scratch her head and thought. "I think I remember walking through the village many years ago," said God. "And on that day, I believe I was wearing my hat that is blue on one side and red on the other." And saying nothing more, God continued to walk down the wall until she disappeared off in the distance. It was very quiet for a moment. Suddenly, there was the sound of one child laughing, then another child laughing, and another. Soon the whole village was roaring with laughter. Everyone was laughing because they realized how foolish they had been. As the sound of laughter grew louder and louder, the wall began to shake and crumble until, finally, it came tumbling down to the ground. For many, many years after that day, the people told the story of God's hat and how laughter had torn down the wall between a divided and foolish people. And now if the children would come up and get our chalice, we can have you guys sing us out.
So that means blue and red are now resolved, right? Yeah, well, soon. We're getting there. Our offering message today comes, like last week, from our UUA president, Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick Gray. Susan sent cards out this week that had another wonderful and encouraging message that I'd like to read to you. And I just love this image. I should put it up to the camera. Isn't it beautiful? I don't know if you guys can see that. Really beautiful card. I'll share it with you later. Susan writes, "Dear ones, what times we continue to live through. We're in the churn of change. Systems and practices that we've relied on are breaking down, and what is needed is still being imagined and not yet here. When we are worn down and worn out, sometimes we still push ourselves, knowing that the urgency and importance of the challenges ahead. But to bring forth the creativity, the energy, and the compassion that is needed to nurture change, we need to take care of ourselves. Rest is crucial for the quality and sustainability of our bodies, spirits, and our leadership. It is the seedbed of imagination, generosity, and inspiration. In this very busy season, give yourselves permission to tend to the care of your body and spirit. There remains much work ahead. I have faith we will find ourselves renewed by taking time for play, for naps, for gardening, for stargazing, for what brings us joy and peace. This time will remind us of our wholeness as human beings and our resilience of spirit. Thank you for all that you give to Unitarian Universalism. May you be showered in blessings and held in the arms of joy and peace. Susan. Beautiful. I feel like I could have signed that one too. Very aligned with that. She calls on us to put care, compassion, inclusion, justice, and a commitment to thriving at the center of what we do. There is a hope and vitality that is rising again. And none of it could happen without the generous gifts of our community. For those who are struggling to meet their financial responsibilities, we hold hope for a better way forward for you in just a little while longer. Those who are less affected by financial stress step in for you until that day comes, holding hearts full of hope. Those joining us online are invited to use the PayPal link in the chat. Thank you, Jaryus, for posting that. Some may wish to use your phones as you're sitting there in the sanctuary. Connect to the donate button on our website's homepage. And now, while we enjoy Lily's beautiful offertory, I invite those in the sanctuary who wish to come forward with your generous offerings and your food donations for the Beta Center at Inland Valley Hope Partners. It is with warm gratitude that our offering will now be given and received. Sharing our lives together is an important part of our weekly worship. We don't have any of the yellow slips that anyone has filled out today, but we do have a few joys and concerns that will be shared with the congregation. Before we do that, I just want to mention that we've been doing, paying attention, really, to a teaching that's coming to us just from life. It seems to have started when Reverend Ellen was talking about joy, and how joy is often woven, fine, with woe. One of the prayers for today is for our beloved Dolores Burris. Yeah. I was with Dolores this morning, and several of us, I know Maribel and some of the others have been to sit by her bedside. But she is in her last time right now. Reverend Ellen has been to visit. I was alone with her and Nancy this morning, and we had a very beautiful visit together. Dolores is not communicative right now, so our prayers for her. She will sense. I did bring a little chalice with a battery flame and left it there on her table by her mom's picture. So our spirit is with her, holding her. Another heavy but relieving joy mixed with sorrow was my husband George's eye surgery this week. That he's on Zoom. I can see him, but he doesn't have the camera on. But he's joining us via Zoom today. So we just want to offer our gratitude for all of you, for your concern and your check-ins with us about how it went. The surgeon was very pleased with the outcome. So now there's just this long period of healing for the eye. After that intrusion, our eyes are not built for that kind of work being done on them. But George had a small tear in his retina that was getting worse, so they were trying to connect it with laser, making scar tissue to heal it, but that wasn't working, so they went and did the surgery that went very well. So we are very grateful, and he's doing well with pain, too, with that. So he's also milking it a little. Can I say that? He's like, sorry, I can't empty the dishwasher. I'm not allowed to bend over. So, sorry, honey, I had to tell that story. But he's doing great. And the next joy, I think best comes from the person that it focuses on, the person we're celebrating here. So, Maddie?
About 3 months ago, I went to the emergency ward to discover that I had a urinary tract infection. And at the time, they took a CT scan and discovered that I had a growth on my left kidney. And it was pretty serious because it was large, about 13 centimeters. So my primary doctor called the urologist, radiologist specialist, and I went to see him. And when I did, he looked at the CT scan and he said, I think we're going to have to take your kidney, your left kidney, because this looks cancerous. He said, although we don't want to make that definitive statement yet because we need to get a CT scan with contrast. So 3 weeks later, I got to go down to Yenoki and get the CT scan with contrast. And when it came back, my sisters and I all went to see him, and he said, I've consulted with 4 other radiologists, and we think now it may not be a mass, it may be an abscess. So we'll need to get in there and do a biopsy, and we'll need to drain that abscess to see if it is cancerous. So Friday, I went to the hospital, San Antonio, and I was really, really nervous. And the choir knows all this because you know me, my big fat mouth, I just talk about all things to you guys. And so they were all wishing me well. And Jimmy's been saying prayers for me now for probably 2 full months, fervently. And if you know anything about Jimmy Grissom, you know that he and God are like that. And that when he says prayers, boy, there's a linkage. So I attribute what I'm going to tell you a lot to him. But I also attribute a lot to your prayers and thoughts. And I attribute even more to my friend Jeannie Coates, who cast a spell and worked very diligently and wrote me one of the most beautiful letters I've ever had with affirmations about how we can heal ourselves. And I kept that with me right up to the time that they wheeled me into the CT scan room. Kept reading it over and over and over. It's beautiful. I'll share it with you later. So I went in there. The doctor came in and he talked for half an hour about all of the things that could happen to me as a result of this, because he needed to explain all of the things that it could possibly be and the dangers that are involved in all of that. I signed some papers. Did the CT scan, and I was lying down on my stomach with a cannula in and an IV and all that stuff so they could do the contrast. And about 10 minutes later, he came out and he kneeled down by the side of my gurney so he could be eyesight with me. And he said, I have good news. And they paused, and I went, oh, crap. And I have great news. So he said, so give me the good news. He said, we don't need to do a biopsy. We don't need to. And I said, well, what's the great news? What could be better than that? He said, you can get up and walk out of here. He said, your body has healed itself. And he showed me the pictures of September's CT scan and Friday's CT scan. And there was this big mass there in September on the CT scan. And it was like that on Friday. It was gone. And he said, he looked at me right in the eyes and he said, this is a rare event, but it happens. And he said, you're free to go. And I said, do I need to wait? You know, like you're supposed to wait 3 or 4 hours in the hospital afterwards. He said, why? Why would you wait? We didn't give you any medications. We didn't do any procedures at all. All we did was a CT scan. You can go right now and celebrate. So we went out with my family and we celebrated. So I'm sharing this joy with you because, in my opinion, that was a miracle. And this is an act of faith. The this church is teaching me, that Jimmy Grissom is teaching me, that Jeannie Coates is teaching me, that the choir is teaching me, and that you are teaching me. To have faith, and to pray, and as Jeannie says, we have the power to heal ourselves. And if you've ever seen a true believer, you're looking at one now. A true believer. And Jeannie Coates, and Jimmy Grissom, and all of you, and then Reverend Maggie as well. Jimmy and I would like to sing as a result, Amazing Grace for you. And we're going to be backed up by the choir. I'm recovering from laryngitis. It wasn't enough on Friday to go to the hospital, but that's when my voice started to go. So I immediately called Lily when I got done with this and said I want to sing on Sunday if my voice works. My voice isn't really working today. You can hear it. But I don't care. God knows, and you guys know. So better to do it today rather than next Sunday when my voice will be back. And besides, Jimmy's got my back. Or no, he's got my throat.
And a purple tie. Right, Jimmy? Oh, we can go home now.
Thanks.
But let's not. Yeah. I invite you, if you have the teal hymnal there with you, just find hymn number 1031, stick your finger in there. Because I'm going to ask Lily to break our shared silence by starting to play that hymn when we get there. And I invite you to breathe with me. I don't want to change your breath patterns. Just know, let's just pay attention to the fact that we are all breathing together in this space and in the online space as well. sit comfortably. Let your arms rest in your lap and your feet feel connected to the earth. And if your eyes drift, slowly closed. We will journey into the wilderness for just a bit of magical time that will be followed by a few minutes of shared silence. Because wilderness is a part of every soul's journey and can be the most beautiful part of our wandering together. The time we have spent in this wilderness, we have shared over these past few years, is not for the faint of heart. But the wilderness now offers us renewal as we ask for rest, for guidance, for refreshing, and for loving support of the divine. Wilderness time is a time that we are not alone, and we are alone. We are no longer where we have been, but nor have we found our way to a complete arrival at the place that we are going. There is uncertainty and possibility, risk and promise. A journey through the wilderness can be a time when we both hunt for and hide from the holy. But we enter the wilderness like those who seek renewal, or like our ancestor Henry David Thoreau, to live deliberately. Being here deliberately in these incredible and messy days with wide open awareness keeps us on the path of our responsible search for truth and meaning. Being here takes great courage and the support of our entire team of compadres. Being here, we notice that our markers of normal life in this time and space have collapsed. But yet this wilderness is the boundless territory for the renewal of our very soul. And together we open into the beautiful realms of the non-physical in a time of shared silence. A reading from today comes from Reverend Dr. Erica Hewitt. She's titled it, Connection as Resistance. In her 1975 theological treatise, Suffering, German liberation theologian Dorothy Sewell examines the ways that suffering can knit human beings closer together and draw us more fully into the process of loving. She first uses the term apatheia, which means the inability to suffer, to describe the condition in which some of us can become so dominated by the goal of avoiding suffering that it becomes a goal to avoid human relationships and contacts together. Isolation and apathy are forms of powerlessness, and both destroy. In Sewell's words, we are destroyed most thoroughly by that affliction that robs us of any possibility of loving any longer. The capacity we need the most is the capacity to keep on loving. If pain and suffering tempt us to become isolated and apathetic, Sewell argues, we must instead give voice to our suffering by creating a language of lament that might instead draw us all into solidarity. Therefore, resisting loneliness in times such as these is not just an emotional, psychological, or even spiritual act, but also a political one. Maria Popova puts it this way. I don't know if that's Lily's relative. I just realized that. I'm like, I know Popova. Our insistence on belonging, community, and human connection is one of the greatest acts of courage and resistance in the face of oppression. Our third principle calls us to that acceptance and encouragement that embraces each one's suffering with the healing arms of connection. Let's enjoy the choir.
This next song is called Peace in the Valley, and it's got...
Thank you. I begin my message today with this prayer as we open together toward the inspiration of the mystical, and we follow that lure that draws us toward wonder and sacred worth. We bring our curiosity and our hope for that morsel to be gleaned, that just right touch of the heart that we may not even know we want. We give thanks for the web of life, woven with strands of God, and for the many gifts of love, which can never be unraveled. Amen. It was midsummer when our planning for the new church year ahead brought Robert and I together in conversation about aligning the congregation's themes for worship with the religious exploration curriculum and doing a deeper dive into the 7 Unitarian Universalist principles together. What we hadn't imagined at that time was that the Unitarian Universalist Association headquarters in Boston would create a commission to, or actually had created a commission, to begin reviewing Article 2 of the association's bylaws and to prepare a revision of that section that presents our 7 principles. Our adult RE class that begins today at noon will lead us on a deeper dive into the proposed revision to be voted on at our 2023 General Assembly in Pittsburgh this coming June. Until there is a change, we'll stick to the plan. Beginning with our look at the first principle that affirms the worth and dignity of every person, as the new year opened in September, we also took some time to really touch in and feel our own inherent worth and dignity. We explored justice, equity, and compassion in October, and this month, along with the children, we're reflecting on principle number 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. The children's program through Tapestry of Faith phrases our third principle this way. We believe that we should accept one another and keep on learning together. But our children's promise that you can read on the back of your order of service is the yellow promise this month that encourages its students to yearn, to accept and learn about ourselves and others and the mystery. And while the adult version gives us a nudge toward best practices for congregational life, let's spend some time today looking how it comes alive here at MVUC. In some ways, the wording of our third principle sounds pretty amazing. It feels a bit more like the affirmation of a character trait of every Unitarian Universalist. It's like a bragging right that we use to prove that we're way cooler than every other church. Acceptance of one another? Of course we do. Encouragement to spiritual growth? Well, duh. But before we check that box and feel that we've mastered this one, let's listen to our children and hear them say what is actually required of us. To learn from the mouths of babes and do the work. And as Captain Picard would charge us, make it so. We make it so that we can claim with a clear conscience that this third principle really is our second nature. The children hold themselves to the work that we also need to be doing. Their phrasing of the third principle says, we believe that we should accept one another and keep on learning together. We yearn to accept and learn about ourselves and others and the mystery. I reach for those words to keep me on task, doing my own soul work. Affirming our adult-sized acceptance of one another is much more passive than the children's words that take us deeper and insist that we take action when they say, I believe we should accept one another, begging the question that maybe we're not. And we all do well to look within to be certain. The Oxford English Dictionary tells us that the word should is used to indicate an obligation, a duty, or the need for a shift toward correctness. We typically use should when we're critiquing someone's actions. We certainly don't tell ourselves we should do anything that we're already busy with. So let's hear the children's voices cry out, hey, I believe we should be accepting each other. And let's agree, we could be. And yes, children, thank you, we should be. Their version of the third principle tells us next that we are to keep on learning together. After all, the past 3 years of lockdown have brought us, we find one takeaway is that we have truly missed learning together. The new member class we facilitated last Sunday was an incredible few hours of breaking bread together and learning together. And wow, have we missed that. Because COVID has had us on lockdown only 6 weeks after my halftime ministry began, I found myself frustrated by all of the intimate learning time that was taken away from us. But the class that Laura will lead after worship today will be a flag planting moment as we recover after being online only for way, way, way too long. And I hope you'll be joining us in the Founders Room at noon today. Learning together is another aspect of our third principle that we can all engage with more. Our kids tell us we should keep on doing it. From the perspective of my ministry with you, I believe that we are also asked not only to participate in shared classroom learning, as in our adult RE, or from our participation in the book group or other learning arenas, but we're invited to keep learning together from our mistakes. Just this past week, I was given the opportunity to learn together with someone who made it easy for me to acknowledge and apologize for a quick and regrettable reaction in a flurry of stressful moments. But we learned together. We learned that no matter what our age, we have learning to do. We learned that it's important to have a yearning to accept and learn about ourselves and each other and the mystery. And doing so will help us grow toward our best selves. And no, it's not for the faint of heart. Nothing about our faith is. But it offers us the chance to offer one another the acceptance that we may have lacked in our past, our own difficult days. The acceptance that we longed for in the world when we see rejection and hate and walls that go up in the middle of the street like they did in our story. And the acceptance that's necessary for us to make this place a place of healing growth. When we work together to create that space for acceptance in ourselves and in our relationships, we're living according to the third principle. And it does become more and more our instinct, our character trait, our second nature. That acceptance gives us courage and space to return to the place that we've forgotten was our true home, love. And beginning now, from this moment forward, we accept ourselves and one another as we continue to learn about that together. Hafiz has a word for us as we close. Hafiz writes, I sometimes forget that I was created for joy. My mind is too busy and my heart is too heavy for me to remember that I have been called to dance the sacred dance of life. I was created to smile, to love, to be lifted up, and to lift others up. O sacred one, untangle my feet from all that ensnares and free my soul that we might dance and that our dancing may be contagious. May it also be for you. Blessed be, and amen. We're going to sing together with the choir because it's a song that you probably have sung at General Assembly or maybe a regional assembly before. It's one I'm real familiar with and I want to just share it with you. It is in the Teal hymnal. It's number 1015. The title is I Know I Can. You guys want to stand and sing out? It's easy to catch on to. Let's read that together. If here you received welcome, take it with you into the world. If here you feel community, go and offer it to others. If here you found hope, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. If you believe in peace, go in peace and be makers of peace. And before we dismiss to fellowship time, I invite you to enjoy Lily's postlude.